Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video I'm going to talk about Tobermory Distillery. Tobermory Distillery is the only distillery on the Isle of Mull, Scotland. The name Tobermory is derived from a Gaelic term meaning Mary's Well, which refers to a well located nearby, which was dedicated in ancient times to the Virgin Mary. Tobermory Distillery was founded in 1798 by John Sinclair. The distillery is currently owned by Burns Stewart Distillers, a subsidiary of Distell Group Limited of South Africa, which also owns Bunnahabhain Distillery on Islay. Tobermory's water source comes from a private loch near Mishnish Locks. Tobermory uses a traditional rake and plow stainless steel mash tun. They have 4 washbacks made of Oregon pine. They have 8 stills, 4 wash stills and 4 spirit stills. And they use shell and tube condensers. In addition to single malt Scotch whiskey, Tobermory produces gin. Currently, their core range consists of the Tobermory 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, matured in ex-bourbon cask and bottled at 46.3% alcohol by volume. All of Tobermory Distillery's whiskies are non-chill filtered with natural color. The Ledaig 10-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, matured in ex-bourbon cask, peated at 30 to 40 ppm and is bottled at 46.3% alcohol by volume. The Ledaig 18-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, matured 16 years in ex-bourbon cask and 2 years in sherry cask, peated at 30 to 40 ppm, bottled at 46.3% alcohol by volume. The Ledaig Sinclair Series Rioja cask single malt Scotch whiskey, matured in ex-bourbon cask, finished in Spanish Rioja cask, bottled at 46.3% alcohol by volume. The Scotch Malt Whisky Society. Scotch Malt Whisky Society cask number 42.70 Swash and Buckle. This is a Ledaig 14-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, matured for 14 years in refill hogshead. It was distilled in March 2007. It is bottled at 56.7% alcohol by volume. The USA had an allocation of 84 bottles and sold for $150. So I visited Tobermory Distillery on the Isle of Mull in April 2023-24. As I get older, my years all start to, we're in 2025, April 24? Yeah, April 24. This happens as you get older. Events start to condense, and you can't remember, was it 6 months ago, was it a year ago? It happens as you get older. You lose your hair, that's the first thing that goes. You lose your eyesight, and then the third thing you lose, what's the third thing you lose as you get older? I don't remember. Anyway, it's not important. Let's get back to the whiskey. So, I was able to visit Tobermory Distillery. If you have the opportunity to visit Tobermory Distillery, they have some bottlings there that you want to grab, a lot more than what's generally available on the market. This is the Tobermory 12-year-old excellent whiskey, non-peated. This is a Tobermory 12-year-old at 55.1% alcohol by volume, Fino cask. Fino is a type of sherry. You have Fino, Amontillado, Oloroso, Palo Cantado, and Pedro Jimenez. So, Fino cask. This is a bottle I brought back from the distillery, Tobermory. This is bottled at 57.9% alcohol by volume. I've already reviewed this. This is a 2005 Oloroso matured cask number 715. This is a total sherry bomb. I mean, one of the most intense Oloroso sherry cask finished whiskeys I have ever had. I mean, it's absolutely insane. If you're a sherry cask lover, that is a bottle for you. Now, few things I want to talk about in this video. First is, this is my bottle of the Ledaig 10-year-old. You notice I've got another cork stuck in here because this one broke. This one broke. Now, I've had a few corks like this break over the last couple of years, and I'm getting a little tired of it. Long story short, there are different types of cork you can use if you want to use a cork for closing a bottle. A natural cork that you're typically going to use for a wine bottle, this is from Domaine Drouin, from a Pinot Noir, from a domain up in Oregon, Lamb, Oregon. See how that has the little lines on it, the little specks on there? This is 100% natural cork. In a wine bottle, one of the things that that natural little gaps in there does, it allows air to pass through the cork, which enables a wine to mature in the bottle. Spirits, generally speaking, don't mature in the bottle. Once the bottle, that's it. They mature in the cask. So the difference between wine might spend 6 months, maybe a year and a half in oak, if it's an oaked wine. Some wines only see stainless steel. It's not going to be in that long. Whereas a whiskey, Scotch, obviously minimum 3 years, but you're talking 5, 8, 10, 12, 15, 18, 20, and up. So it's going to spend a lot more time in a cask. It's not going to mature in a bottle. So that's one type of cork. This is also a natural cork, but notice it doesn't have a lot of spots on it. They have punched this from the bark of the cork tree in a spot that didn't have a lot of gaps in it. This is pretty dense, flexible, and it isn't going to break or highly unlikely it'll break. This is a composite cork, which is basically you take dust, particles of cork, you then make them like a mold or you press it together and then use a food grade glue. These are also really dense, highly unlikely these are going to break. If you use a natural cork like this that has those little gaps, high alcohol will begin to dissolve the cork. If anybody from Tobermory Distillery is watching this, please pay attention. It will begin to dissolve the cork. And the problem is, if it's been sitting on your shelf for a while, if you have a large collection like this, it'll dissolve, and by the time you come around to opening up again, maybe a year, might be 2 years, it has dissolved. Not only does the cork break when you pull it, but it'll dissolve into the whiskey, and now your whiskey is ruined. Even if it didn't break, even if you manage to get it all out without any particles flowing around in your bottle, it is ruined. I had a bottle from Bruichladdich do this that I brought back. I contacted them. They're no longer using these types of corks, thankfully. I had 2 bottles from Ardbeg. One was the Kildalton, really hard to get bottle. Fortunately, I was able to save the whiskey, but I had to put another cork into it. And another one was, this was a real heartbreaker. It was the, my brain is, the Dark Cove. A bottle of Dark Cove. To have it sitting right here. Fortunately, it didn't dissolve. I was able to break it. It broke. And I think a little of the cork might be in there. I don't know. It's not up to what it should be. I'm going to set this off to the side. Well, then put the cork back in there. All right. Dark Cove, if you're not familiar with Dark Cove, probably the best whiskey Ardbeg ever put out. If you can find a bottle, they're $800 and up. And I have another one sitting back here that hasn't been opened. Now, you can go every once in a while, maybe tip them, try to keep moist. That's only increasing the rate in which they're dissolving. It's not just a matter of the cork drying out and breaking. It's that the spirit is actually dissolving into a powder substance of that cork going into your bottle. So, whiskeys bottles do not need a cork. They do not need a cork. A cork in a whiskey bottle is like teats on a bull. Absolutely useless. All right, that's enough of my rant on corks. I sent an email and a picture of this bottle and of the cork to the distillery. All they said was, thank you for the notice. And I've gotten no other response from this. Bottom line is, if they continue to use this, I'm not buying any more bottles from Tobermory, just telling you straight up. Now, if you buy a bottle of whiskey and it's got, you notice it's got one of those corks with all the little, that little particle lines, my suggestion to you is, do not put the cork back in there, or very quickly buy separately a bunch of synthetic corks or compressed corks, something else other than this. Buy corks, something like this, and don't wait for it to go bad, immediately replace it. I got to go through my entire library that I have here and probably look for any bottle that has these types of corks. Most distilleries are not using these. Now, the best bottles for stoppages on whiskeys tend to be Japanese bottles. Those people know what they're doing when it comes to closures for whiskeys. All right, again, enough of the rant on that. Second thing I want to talk about is Ardbeg 10-year-old and the Ledaig 10-year-old used to be very similar. I'll show you a picture of a side-by-side bottling of an older bottling of a Ledaig 10-year-old and a newer bottling of a Ledaig 10-year-old. As you can see from this picture, the older bottle is lighter in color and the newer bottle is a little bit darker. Now, when I when I reviewed this bottle, you see this one is darker. I had a question. Are they putting E150 in it? What are they doing to get it that darker color? Now, this bottle that I just poured into my glass here, this is the Ledaig 14-year-old independent bottle from Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. Look at the color on this. This looks like the older bottle of the Ledaig 10-year-old. Now, I'll show you a little clip from Whiskey Whistle. He's a whiskey tuber up in Canada. He's been doing stuff for a long period of time. But here's a little clip of him doing the Ledaig 10-year-old, and look at the color of the bottle. It is like this Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. It is like that picture of the older bottling of the Ledaig 10-year-old. So what's going on here? Some people commented on my video of the review of the Ledaig 10-year-old that according to some German labels, they indicated in German that there could be some E150, some coloring in it, because of the requirement for honest labeling on German labels. Problem with that is some producers will put that on a label for the German market, even if it doesn't have E150 on it, because just in case there's an oops. And I've been told this by other sources. Just in case there's oops. So in other words, you could have a label on a German bottling that has that on there, even if there isn't E150 on it. So I don't necessarily trust that label to be telling me what's actually on this particular bottling. So what could it be? Now I'm going to show you something. I'm going to pour myself a little bit of the Ardbeg 10. This is like my 6th or 7th bottle of the Ardbeg 10. I would say fairly consistent over the years. By the way, here's an Ardbeg 10 cork. It looks slightly speckled here, but not there, and it seems to have more density to it. It's a better cork. It's also not as big and as round. I mean, look at the side. In terms of the circumference of the cork, this one is a lot larger than that one. It's these larger corks that probably originally designed to go into wine bottles that are causing the problem. Again, anybody from Tobermory, comment down below. Do us a favor, stop using those corks. Change your corks. Now I want to show you, here's the Ardbeg 10-year-old. Here is the Ledaig 14-year-old Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. And look at it, side by side. Essentially the same color. Essentially, it's kind of, I would call it a pale straw in color, or pale lemon. It's a very pale color, all right? One of the things I noticed, so I had tasted an older bottling of a Ledaig 10-year-old, and I remember registering in my head, the Ledaig 10-year-old is very similar to an Ardbeg 10-year-old, and during a blind tasting, you might confuse a Ledaig 10-year-old with an Ardbeg 10-year-old. Well now, because they've changed the color on the Ledaig 10-year-old, that's no longer the case. If it seems similar in terms of the intensity of the peat and the ABV, because this is 46.3% alcohol by volume, if I recall correctly. Yes, 46.3 alcohol by volume. By the way, Bunnahabhain, 46.3. Deanston, 46.3. and Ledaig 46.3. Is there a pattern there? Is there a relationship there? Yes, they're all owned by Burn Stewart Distillers, which is owned by Distill, a South African company. So just note that you see these 46.3s, those three different bottlings, different distilleries, but all owned by the same parent company. So if you're tasting something blind and it tells you what the ABV is, you go, oh, 46.3. It's either from Deanston, so it's from Bunhaven, or it's from Tobermory. All right, we'll move on. So on the nose then, on the nose, this 14-year-old Ledaig is very similar to that Ardbeg 10-year-old. The primary difference is, because it's a higher ABV, it's more intense. There's also a difference there. There's an Ardbeg character to Ardbeg, and I think it has to do with their purifier, that it gives a unique character to the spirit. But it's that lemon and lime. There's also a kind of more of a mud character to Ardbeg. But it's that fresh lemon and lime, interwafting smoke, barbecue character. Main difference is this is really, really, really popping out of the glass. I mean, it is, my nose isn't tingling, but it's a lot more intense. So even without, this is Ardbeg on my left, this is Ledaig from Scotch Malt Whiskey Society on my right. There are some differences. The one thing about the Ledaig 10-year-old, in addition to the color, and there was speculation, maybe there could be E150. I think, again, this is speculation, I don't know. I'm theorizing, this is based on experience. I've been to Scotland 4 times, been to 49 distilleries, went through this Scotch Malt Whiskey, the Springbank Whiskey School. I spent a day working at Ballindallack, so I get more behind the scenes stuff. And one of the things I noticed when visiting distilleries is, and the tour guide wouldn't point it out, but as we're walking along and outside the warehouse, you'd see a pallet. And on the pallet were a bunch of casks, and they had like the cellophane tape, to keep it onto the pallet. Or they might have banding, that metal banding. Yes, cellophane tape, big wrapping cellophane tape to keep it onto the pallet. And I noticed, and the tour guide didn't mention it, but I'm like, that's a brand new cask. It's not a cask from some bourbon distillery or from, Jerez, Spain. That's a brand new cask. That's virgin oak. You don't typically see a whole lot of virgin oak in Scotland. 90% of what they have in the warehouses is going to be bourbon casks. So what's going on here? Distilleries are using virgin oak and without bottling it as virgin oak, and they are using virgin oak to add a little color to the whiskeys without using E150, and to add a little tannic structure to the whiskeys and to give it a different character. So this is what's been going on in my mind since I originally did the video on the Ledaig 10-year-old. Gotta be careful. Don't want to break another cork off in there. When I was doing a comparison of these whiskeys off screen before hitting the record button, there is a more dense character. There is sort of a Snickers bar character. There's a slight astringent character on the back end that I don't get from this Scotch Malt Whiskey Society 14-year-old Ledaig. The Ledaig from Scotch Malt Whiskey Society finishes clean, kind of silky, more intense alcohol, obviously. It's got the lemon lime character that reminds me a little bit of Ardbeg, and it reminds me of a Ledaig 10-year-old I had tasted before I had a bottle of my own and did a review. So I have in my mind the way Ledaig 10-year-old used to taste, and that the bottle looked like whiskey whistles bottle that I just showed you on there. So what do I think is going on? Possibility they are using virgin oak. This is a little sample bottle I brought back from Ledaig. Have you ever seen Ledaig use virgin oak? This is a bottle from Ledaig. It's a bottle of 100% virgin oak Ledaig. This isn't something for sale. I got this the last time I visited Ledaig twice. The last time I visited the distillery, and we were blind tasted on this and asked to guess what it was. You wouldn't want to bottle 100% like this. It's extremely astringent, quite tannic, but what you can do is you can take just a little bit of this in the place of E150 and drop this into a bottle, and you're gonna add some color and some structure, that is some tannic structure, to give it more of an astringency and different mouthfeel than your typical whiskey. So that's my theory on what's going on with the Ledaig 10-year-old, the Ledaig 10-year-old. Now, let me finish up this review by talking a little bit more about this whiskey. This is the Ledaig. For a 14-year-old, it seems younger than that. It's got that lemon lime character, but it doesn't have a new makey character. New makey could be like bubble gum, and it can be like a kind of a gross lime. Well, not gross, but a lime that I don't particularly care for. And maybe, and typically a young spirit will have sharper edges. Maturation sort of rounds off the edges of a spirit, so it won't seem as sharp. So this doesn't have an attack, sharpness on the palate the way a young whiskey would. And that's the main thing that's, if I was doing this blind, that keeps me from thinking this is a really young whiskey. So what do I think of this? Unless you're a Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, you're not going to be able to get this. If you are an SMWS member, and this video is not sponsored by them, you're looking for distillery number 42. Distillery number 42. This is cask number 70 from Tobermory Distillery. So right now they would probably, I don't know, it could be 42.80 or whatever. But that's what you're looking for if you want to get a cask strength Ledaig that doesn't have any, potentially any virgin oak in it, and it has that sort of purity of the character. I like the mouthfeel. It's very approachable, even neat, even at this high ABV. Doesn't make me gag, doesn't make me bite, doesn't make me cringe. It's not a total assault on the palate. I really, really like it. I would give this, if you could get a bottle, I would rate this at 90 points. I think it's excellent, and for the price quality ratio, that what they were selling these for, I think it's really, really, really good. Alrighty, that's it for this video. If you have learned something, if you've had an older bottling of the Ledaig 10-year-old that was of different color, and maybe you've had a newer bottle like this one, let me know what you think in your comparison between the two and what you think about this. And if you are working for Tobermory Distillery and you can provide more information, it would be absolutely awesome if you could respond. All right, that's it for this video. If you've not already subscribed, I'd ask that you do. And if you have subscribed, I want to thank you very much. And until next time, Slanja. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.